Let's talk about buyer agent commissions.
Sure, let's talk about it.
Oh gosh, what a shitstorm over the past. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been going on forever. I remember in real estate school, I was in HPW real estate school, and they were like, you know, just warning you guys, colluding on commission is antitrust. Like, you're probably going to charge 6%. 6% is probably going to be your fee. It's what most people charge if you do a third party independent analysis. You're all going to do 6%, but you're not colluding, and we're not talking about it, okay? And and that's kind of how it's always been. And now all of a sudden, some fat cat lawyers got involved. I mean, what happened there? Like, how did we get to that settlement? Because it was not somebody sticking up for the little guy.
No, absolutely. Well, the reason that we settled is because the judgment was for about $1.7 billion, and Missouri state law, in order to appeal a case like that, you have to deposit three times the amount into an escrow account, and NAR didn't have the cash to be able to do that. So that's part of the reason. I think another part of the reason is just because they wanted to put this behind us. But it's very interesting. If you look at what was agreed upon and what we started adjusting to back in the summer and what was approved back in November, it's a little bit different because North Carolina Association of Realtors came out with a couple of forms. We've got the form, I think it's 770, that if you're offering a bonus on your listing, if I've only contracted for a 2% buyer's agent compensation and you're offering 3%, we have a form in North Carolina 770 that we were able to use in order to raise the commission and disclose to the buyer that we were getting paid more than that. Well, the final settlement says that we're not allowed to raise our compensation once you've got it agreed to in writing. So are we going to be advised to use that form? I haven't heard the Board of Realtors, the North Carolina Association of Realtors, come out on that. I'm sure the North Carolina Real Estate Commission will have a comment on it, but I think that's going to be a big question down the road. The Department of Justice had been coming after NAR, wanting buyers to pay buyers agents, wanting sellers to pay sellers agents, and that's the rationale that the DOJ had under the Biden administration, and they've been fairly aggressive during the Democrat administrations. If you look back to the Obama administration, all of this stuff started between 2012 and 2016 with the Obama administration and the DOJ, and they didn't like the fact that the NAR, which is traditionally a little bit right-leaning, I wouldn't call it far-right in any way, shape, or form, but it is a small business organization basically that represents small business owners like you and me. And I think the Department of Justice was operating, trying to limit some of the policies that allowed things to happen. It'll be interesting with the Trump administration coming in January 20th of next year, in just a little over 30 days here, actually 1 month from today, as a matter of fact. I think it'll be interesting to see the shift from the Department of Justice with that. I think we're probably safe for another 4 years, but I think that there's going to eventually, when a Democrat gets elected at the presidential level again, I think that will change the way the DOJ is looking at things. And it's almost been, and this is my word, not anybody else's. This is Brian's opinion, but the DOJ has somewhat been weaponized against the National Association of Realtors. So
Well, it's not just your opinion. Gary Keller's, I've heard him speak those words out of his mouth. So,
gotcha. I haven't heard him say that, but I think a lot of people feel that way. It's like, and as we've learned, as I know you learned from Jay, as I learned from Jay, we talked about Jay Crow earlier. When you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. And if you say yes to the buyers having to pay the buyer's agent commission out of pocket, then that means the buyer's going to have less money to put down on the house, which means we're delaying ownership. If we looked at the annual numbers from the National Association of Realtors report this year on buyers and sellers, the average age of the buyer this year, the average age of the first-time home buyer was 38 years old. Well, that's 10 years older than it was 25 years ago. And part of that is because of the fact that people can't save enough to be able to pay for the down payment, much less add on the compensation. So how are we going to get that in? I'm guessing that you're probably seeing offers that include a sale price, but they probably have a concession of some type, or you're offering some kind of compensation. Again, you can advertise that anywhere you want, except for on the MLS. And that's where the big change has come in.
Yeah. It's yeah, so I just made a website, familybuildingco.com/2.5. 2.5. Guess what it says? The agents get 2.5%.
Yeah,
So
and as a
I
company, you can do that. But the
yeah.
on the board of realtors, I can put that on my own personal website that we pay X number of dollars. But because I'm listing with different people, I have one seller that's willing to pay compensation. I have one that's not willing to pay. I have one that says, "Well, I'll pay a flat fee of 10 grand," and another that says, "I'll pay 2.25%." So I can't put that kind of a blanket statement on my website. So what I'm doing, if you make an appointment to show one of my listings as an agent, or if you are an unrepresented buyer that just wants information, I have a whole bunch of data in a Google Drive, and I just create a short link to it and I send that out for anybody that has an inquiry. And it's got the compensation agreement that's inside of there with what we have agreed to. I think a lot of agents are making this a lot more complicated than it has to be. It's basically treating business like you're doing a for sale by owner. You're calling the seller. Are you interested in cooperating with a buyer's agent? If so, are you willing to pay a buyer's agent compensation? Whatever their answer is, you go back to the buyer and you say, here's their answer. If they're not willing to pay, do you want to still go look at the property because you would be then liable for the payment? If they are willing to pay, here's what they're willing to pay. And if there's a gap in that compensation, then the buyer may be responsible for some or all of that gap. I think as long as we just think of it as a for sale by owner transaction, and go about it the same way, it makes things a lot simpler. But I've heard so many agents that are in panic mode, and to be quite honest with you, it's really not necessary. For the majority of agents, I would tell you that 90% of the transactions are no different. The only thing that's changed is, God forbid, you actually have to pick up the phone or send an email and communicate with the listing agent as to what they're offering.
Oh gosh, and agents are gonna have to answer the phone. Like they can't
Well,
just
yeah,
you
I
know
was,
what pet peeve, millennial pet peeve?
give it
I
to me.
hate when somebody calls me and I can't answer because I'm doing something, I'm in a meeting, I'm on the phone. And so they leave me a message, even though my message says just send me a text on what you need.
Right.
And they leave me a message or they send me a text, or usually they do both. And the
Yes.
message is, hey, call me.
Yes.
This is my millennial pet peeve. I know that you are calling to tell me something I don't want to hear, and you want to hear my live reaction to it. And you are putting my wall up. When I call you back, I'm ready to defend.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and I think it's that way with everybody. The worst two things that a husband can hear is, we need to talk about something.